She was a world-class risk assessment expert, the kind who puts a price on human life inside a compensation spreadsheet. But in Vietnam, a sudden crash and the sight of a person falling revealed a horrifying truth. Her advanced degrees had trained her to calculate everything except compassion. This is the story of the moment she realized apathy wasn't self-defense, it was paralysis. This is the Slow Drip series, Episode 8, The Helping Instinct. Clara's old life in Chicago was built on a single philosophy: zero liability. As a corporate restructuring consultant, her job was to surgically remove any risk that could lead to a lawsuit or financial loss. But she didn't just eliminate risk from the system, she eliminated it from her own soul. Every action she took was preceded by a lightning-fast risk assessment. She came to Saigon not for the coffee, but because the life she had so carefully constructed had collapsed under its own weight of control. She sold her sterile smart condo, walked away from a job she had become terrifyingly good at, and sought a place where the rules could finally breathe. She sat on a green plastic stool at Chi Mai's coffee stall, opposite the red one Aidan usually occupied. Even here, thousands of miles from her old office, her mind was still on the job. She watched the traffic, a chaotic ballet of thousands of motorbikes, weaving like a school of fish, violating every traffic law she'd ever memorized. Risk of collision, 99%. Risk of fatality, high. Yet somehow this chaotic system just worked. It had its own rhythm, one far smoother and more forgiving than any regulated transport system back home. She had grown accustomed to the potent aroma of strong coffee, the scent of burning incense, and the constant hum of the city. She even found it amusing that no one here sued over an uneven curb. People just accepted the risks of living as the default setting. But deep down she was still frozen. She called it prudence. She never left her bag where it could be snatched, avoided ice in her drinks, and never, ever touched a stranger. Calculation was her survival instinct. Chi Mai placed a coffee down, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Miss Clara, why do you stare so intensely at the wheels?" In her head, Clara translated her thoughts. "I am estimating the likelihood of mechanical failure due to heat and friction, Mai." Mai just smiled, not quite understanding but sensing the tension. If it can turn, let it turn. Why worry from so far away? She walked off, leaving Clara to grapple with the chasm between logic and acceptance. She was trying to build a mathematical model for something they called thong dong, serenity. This feeling of paralysis wasn't new. Years ago in Chicago, she'd witnessed a minor bicycle accident. The cyclist fell, hitting his head. A small crowd gathered about 30 feet away. They all pulled out their phones, not to call for help, but to record. No one touched the victim. No one wanted to get sued, be implicated in a statement, or simply be inconvenienced. Clara, in her expensive suit, froze too. She knew the rule. No intervention, no liability. She walked away, the coldness of that moment clinging to her like a disease. She had learned that day that compassion was a legal liability, a threat to her assets and her career. It was in the middle of this cold memory that it happened. A sharp, dry screech of tires on cement, followed by the crash of heavy metal hitting the sidewalk. Clara's head snapped up. An elderly woman, hauling towering stacks of crates on a heavy cargo bicycle, had lost her balance. The bike lay pinning her leg. Crates tumbled and glass bottles shattered, glittering like diamonds in the noon sun. The old woman groaned, not from the crash, but from the quiet weight of helplessness. Immediately, Clara's brain defaulted to its programming. Risk assessment mode on: medical risk, spinal injury, do not move her. Legal risk: touching the victim makes you the responsible party. Financial risk: damaged goods. Who pays? Time. Risk: this will take at least 30 minutes, jeopardizing her afternoon schedule. In the first half-second, she stood up, but only to instinctively take a step back, maintaining that legally safe distance. But Saigon had an entirely different response, a wave of instantaneous reaction. Chi Mai was the first to move. She ran, not to check on her customer, but straight to the fallen woman. A Z-Om driver who had been waiting for a fare hung up his phone, switched off his engine, and sprinted over. Two young women taking a selfie on the corner dropped their phones, disregarding asset damage risk, and ran to help. An old man, who had been slowly drinking iced tea, rose and moved faster than any Chicago first responder she'd ever seen. There were no questions asked, only action. The driver didn't ask, "Is anyone hurt?" He just lifted the heavy bicycle off the woman's leg. The two young women didn't ask, "Should we call an ambulance?" They just started gathering the unbroken bottles and sweeping the dangerous shards of glass into a corner with a plastic bag. Chimai didn't ask, "Do you have insurance?" She just helped the woman sit up, gently checking her limbs without a moment's hesitation. The old tea drinker didn't ask, "What can I do?" He simply used his own tattered cloth to wipe a small scrape on the woman's knee. The entire sequence unfolded in less than 90 seconds. It was human speed, not transactional speed. And Clara just stood there, paralyzed. She was the slowest moving object in the entire scene. The cold guilt from that Chicago memory returned, but this time it was mixed with sheer astonishment. Kindness wasn't a conscious choice here. It was a reflex. When it was all over, the woman was sitting up, the bike was upright, and the remaining crates were neatly stacked. She only had a minor scrape. She looked around, her wrinkled face softening into a grateful smile. She offered no money, just a slight bow and a quiet thank you. And just like that, everyone went back to their lives. The driver resumed his phone call. The young women went back to their selfies. The old man returned to his iced tea. No one expected repayment. No one needed acknowledgement. Kindness was Saigon's default software. A wave of shame so profound washed over Clara, she felt like she could melt into the pavement. She hadn't just failed to help. She had actively calculated why she shouldn't. Chimai returned, her face glistening with sweat. She said nothing about Clara's inaction. She just handed her a clean tissue. "You need to wipe your sweat." But Clara knew it wasn't sweat. It was the dammed-up tears of self-judgment. Her voice trembled. "Mai, why did they do that? Weren't they afraid?" Mai looked at her, slightly bewildered by such a naive question. "Afraid of what, Miss Clara? Afraid that someone is in pain?" She sat down, looking deeply into Clara's eyes. "Here, when people fall, people help them up. It's like one hand holding the other. If you fall, they will help you. That's the law here, the human law, not the court law." Aiden had taught her that serenity was patience, but Clara was now learning that true speed was the speed of human reaction, the speed with which a community can move from chaos to cooperation without needing a single signature or risk assessment. She looked down at her green plastic stool. She realized that zero liability had turned her into a zero human. Finally, Clara pushed herself out of her chair, not to handle an emergency, but to deal with the aftermath. She took the clean tissue Mai had given her and wiped the last sticky residue of spilled drink from the pavement. It was a small, insignificant act, but for her it was a profound rupture of an internal wall. Her hands, once trained to calculate billion-dollar risks, were now doing the smallest possible cleanup, and in that moment, she felt more whole than she ever had before. The world's most effective system isn't the one that minimizes risk, but the one that maximizes trust. Compassion isn't an option. It's a community's built-in survival reflex. If this story of calculation versus humanity resonated with you, please share it. And don't miss the next chapter in the Slow Drip series, where we explore a new facet of Saigon life. Like and follow to continue this journey with us. Thank you for watching.